Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Johnson. I'm a programmer at heart, but an IT guy by day. I'm also a student at San Francisco State University, and we just decided last night that I would do this, so I'm really not prepared. I hope you bear with me. I'm just going to run down a few things that I'm excited about. If you're excited about any of it, then let's talk. I just heard you two were talking about Seaside. So one of the things that I'm working on for a class at school, actually, I had to come up with an idea that was like digitally innovative. And I had been thinking about a writing prompter website that was social. So it would give you some kind of inspiration for some kind of creative writing. But then you could see things that other people wrote, and they could see things that you wrote, and then eventually you could connect them. And this was working, and now all of a sudden it's not. Do you have another one of these HDMI DisplayPort adapters? I had this up, and then I was hiding my passwords. If not.
I'll try it again.
Yeah, thanks. So I made something called Prompter, and I'm going to, it's going to be open source. One of the things that I like about Squeak and Seaside is the idea that I could theoretically package this up as an image in a VM and give it to like a teacher to run in a classroom separate from the rest of the internet. Like if it's packaged well, nothing should be stopping someone from just running a web server on their own computer. They would have to deal with IP addresses, maybe get their IT staff nearby to help out. But I don't think it's that much of a challenge compared to asking a teacher to like set up Apache and PHP. You could just bundle the image in the VM, and a teacher could run it and then start going. So this is what Prompter looks like right now. This is a really early version where I just got the bare minimum functionality going so that I could get a grade and pass the semester. The idea was I took this old clip art from a CD-ROM from the 90s, converted it from EPS to SVG, and then I took various blurbs from freely available copyright-free texts on the Internet Archive, and you can say, well, you know what? This isn't really inspiring to me. That shouldn't happen, but I was just messing with a bunch of stuff. Let's see if it happens when I do this again. No, okay, good. So you should be able to just skip through the clip art at random. Because it's Seaside and backtracking should be enabled, I think I can just go back to the last one if I liked it and I realized I want to keep it. Oh, here's one. I feel really inspired by this, so I'm going to say there are consequences for those who don't. I'm going to say save and browse, and now I can see all the combinations of clip art that people have responded to and the blurb that they've contributed. So one of my favorites is a friend of mine while beta testing with this moose coming through a porthole said, for the blurb, I don't think you quite understand the nature of my proposal. The point of these holes is for the animals to look through them. The animals need to see what is going on for themselves. So I'm going to build on this. I'm going to allow people to contribute and make this social and share, but it is all based in Seaside. Here's the admin panel for this instance. I made my own configuration so that I could specify which URL prefix to add to the SVG files, and also where on the file system the blurbs and the SVGs are being served from. I can just drop new SVGs and blurbs in there, and they'll just be added to the system transparently. Those are being served up outside of Seaside. I think Nginx is serving those up on the front end, and then Seaside is doing its business on this port here. For people who aren't familiar with Seaside, because I just added the, well, actually, I'm going to add, is this right? The tool decoration. Then if I reload after I hit apply, I should be out of the deployment. Oh no, I was hoping to show you halos, because halos in Seaside are pretty cool. Does anybody know the quick way to turn halos back on again? No?
Is it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's well, okay, I can show you halos in the admin interface itself, but not on Hekaprompter. So you can see,
It's a development mode, isn't it?
yeah, it's development mode. Let's see. Well, actually, they took that out in Seaside 3. There used to be this really easy link where you could just turn development mode on or off, and then they just made it a blurb you had to paste in the...
I could imagine they use a developer configuration.
This is what I forgot to do, I think. Let's see. No. Oh well. Anyhow, that's not the point. This system is running on a $5 a month DigitalOcean server, and you can see I've actually pulled up the image over X11 over the hotel Wi-Fi. One of my favorite things to do in a Squeak VM besides move windows. Ah, yeah, you saw it? It happened. Is to rotate this little star here. This actually gives the image power. The more you do this, you can save battery life. You just keep rotating this, and it generates energy. Another thing I was hoping to show is the Internet Archive client that I wrote. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Internet Archive.
Wayback.
Yes, they're most famous for the Wayback Machine. They also have a huge collection of Grateful Dead live recordings. That's another thing that they're famous for.
Oh, God.
It's a nonprofit. Anybody who creates an account can upload stuff to it. And then there's an API for pulling stuff down and also modifying items. I don't think people have taken as much advantage of this fact as they could. I used to work there, and I knew that it was quite limited. But there's a wealth of freely available materials. In collections, there are items, and the client has a notion of items as well as collections. It reads the metadata down, which is XML. Let's see. I've made some examples just to be quick. I don't know if you can even read this if the font's big enough. On the class side, let's see some Proust texts. Okay, what's this going to give me? I've got an IA item list with some items in here. Item 1 has some files in it. These are all the files in this item, and it'll show you the formats of each one. I've made a class that represents many of the different file formats that I'm interested in, but some that I think people might be interested in for using test data in their own systems are the image file formats and the text file formats, because the Internet Archive has been digitizing millions of books and converting them into plain text and an ABBY OCR format. This
just recently posted a simulation of a PowerPC Mac with System 9 on it, and then loaded it full simulated game, so you can actually run System 9 with, 15-year-old Mac games. in a browser with it.
Yes.
It's quite.
Emulation in the browser is really cool. If you haven't seen it, I recommend checking it out. One of the obscure features of Squeak is that there's this graphical items browser. And, you know, speaking of some images that have been, or bitmaps that have been in the images for a very, very long time, these are included. And because the archive has all these thumbnails, I felt inspired. I don't know. I think other people have much more time than me, but now that I'm talking about the fact that I've done any of this, upon reflection, I must have some time. I decided to do this for Internet Archive thumbnails. So I reused this morph. And if I do this, well, it takes a second. But here's an example. On this collection, the Ted Nelson Archive, which is, this is the item identifier. I think that my system for using this is pretty clear. So it's an IA collection, new for identifier, Ted Nelson Archive. Just like if here, I go to archive.org, details, Ted Nelson Archive. All the collections and items on the Internet Archive have an identifier, and that's their unique name. So these are all the thumbnails for all the items in here. And because it's Squeak, we can also manipulate all of the images. Like if I say, you know, I need to modify this a little bit. This tree should be red or blue, you know, I'll paint that and keep it. Now, when I was working on this before, when I switched to the next image and came back, I had actually modified the live picture and it was still there. But this time I must be doing something differently. Oh, that's because I have to go here and repaint. Okay, now. This is monumental stuff, people. Okay, so now I've changed the thumbnail. Of course, it's not re-uploading the thumbnail to the archive.
So I have a question. So the Wayback Machine is an app on top of these collections, right? But the collections it's specifically looking at is URLs for pages that it's snapshotted over history, right? And so there's a specific API to Wayback too that's a web service URI basically, right? But the data underlying that is actually in where you are. So do you have an API that can manipulate Wayback queries, or do you?
I'm glad you asked. The Internet Archive essentially uses the same back-end storage system to store what are called works, web archives, as it does all of these excellent materials that I'm showing. I do have in here, there's a collection called Alexa crawls. Yeah, so the Internet Archive has some of its funding from Brewster Kahle, its founder. Part of what goes on is Alexa crawls the internet and then donates the crawls back to the Internet Archive. And they're all accessible. So if you want to go on here and mine this data, here you go.
Well, I have an actual use case for this. I have a friend that's got a blog that's been in continuous, he's been publishing to continuously for 12 years. And it's mostly a link blog. He writes little comments and whatever and link. As you can imagine, especially if you go farther back in time, there's a ton of dead links in there. And he's been too lazy or unmotivated to fix them. So I found a tool that spidered his site for me over, it took it about half an hour. Basically what it did is it produced a file with his page URL for all the ones for what page it was on, and then the URLs at 404 or 503 or whatever that were dead. Essentially, it had certain criteria for it. So now I have this data set of dead links and what page on his site they go to, and I would love to feed that to this.
I might have some bad news for you. No, as far as I know, there's no table of contents available. All of these crawls, all of these works are just totally random.
So the way I was doing it by hand is I just took the first PVC to do it, and I figured out the URIs that the way that interface was forming, and I was manually just typing those into the search bar, right? And either it comes back and says, I don't have that page, or here it is, right? And
Right.
it gives you the archive URI that I can do. But obviously I don't want to, because I've got like a couple thousand of these, I don't want to do it by hand.
They don't make that available, as far as I know. I don't want to be the spokesperson necessarily, but as far as I know, the actual mechanism of returning data for a specific URL is trade secret.
I can do it through the URI tree.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Oh yeah. I mean, just harvest all the data yourself, build your own data center, and then scan all the works.
I want to scan theirs.
If you want to use this API, I recommend using this class called IA download. It takes an IA item file object within an IA item, and it'll download it to your disk or let you manipulate it or whatever. And I have put this up on GitHub under Craggy Aloofness, which I think we were talking about earlier today. I will make this, not right now, but tonight I'll make this publicly. Oh, here we go. Make public. Craggy Aloofness. Oh, cheapers. Okay, let's see. I built a couple other things on top of the Internet Archive library, but I also was hoping that someone might have interest in JSON Web Tokens. I put this up here. If you make a service account in the Google Cloud, meaning you want to use Google Cloud services without having to log in as a quote-unquote human, you need to use these to authenticate your requests. There already was a Pharaoh project, which I was pretty surprised used many of the same, almost even down to the like message names that I used. And this person, I don't know if anybody knows this person. Yeah. I think ran into the same dead end that I did, which was trying to implement the Google version of JWTs.
Right, because they took the RFC and then tweaked it for their own legal purposes. So
It's public, but it's really obscure. Yeah, so I've got my project up here. If anybody wants to work on it, I don't know that I have the algorithm chops to custom code a modified RSA in Squeak. Let's see if I can. So the one that works is called HS256, and the one that Google uses is called RS256. Just in case you want to connect to the Google Cloud API, I mean, seems kind of interesting to me. And then I was also going to demo the Amiga Squeak VM, but I would need your adapter if you have it.
VGI to HDMI.
DVI to HDMI? Oh, no, it's okay. Does anybody have any questions? No? Just a brief bit about the Amiga Squeak VM that I would have demoed. That's true. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So, thank you.